Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Astrology Today with Jeff Harman. Great to see you all. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving and you're having a good holiday season. The world is still crazy, so it's challenging, but hopefully we're all enjoying a little bit of it. Jeff's going to give us, of course, our upcoming energies, current energies, and upcoming energies. And then our topic for this evening is how brainwashed are we? And can we reprogram ourselves? I know I try to reprogram myself so often throughout the day. I really, really do. We're spoon-fed programming since we come in here. So to try to reprogram ourselves is a very healthy thing to do. Let's get started, Jeff.
All right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. We're all programmed. There's no question about that. The whole world, at least of humans, seems to be, or society seems to be a deep programming submersion into that, doesn't it? Yes, it does. So anyways, yeah, I want to go through a little bit of current energies. I hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving. And the bottom line is, I had said right near the end of the month, the United States has this very slow moving primary directed or solar arc directed Mars over the moon. And it actually came in just a couple of days ago. Actually about a day and a half ago. And depending on the ephemeris people use, it's going to hang right over the United States moon up until about the 11th or 12th. Now, let's hope nothing happens. So far, so good. In fact, I would love to see nothing happen for everybody. However, when you look at what just happened today, the ceasefire just stopped in Israel. So, and Lebanon's been lobbing bombs back over to Israel, and there's more attacks starting back on U.S. troops. Plus, the mind control news has been telling us that, the Ukraine war, there's no end in sight. So this is a bunch of things brewing right now that clearly the money handlers at the top of the pyramid seem to be shoveling money into. And this is a very precarious and dangerous place to be. Let's hope, again, this can all peaceably be resolved. But I wouldn't be surprised if this thing rears its head into deeper and deeper situations. Let's hope it doesn't. Let's hope they, get rid of Hamas and everything then starts to level back out and everybody can get along. But from the looks of things on this next upcoming election year, I would expect it to be just about anything could happen, especially because the United States has the Pluto return that we've been mentioning. That's the sidereal Pluto return that comes in 3 times, hits in February, comes back again in the summer, and ends at the end of 2024. So let's hope this next couple of weeks, there's nothing that's going to happen, except on the 12th of December, right around the 11th and 12th, we have a new moon, plus we got Mercury retrograde, and that's right when the Mars over the United States moon is really starting to lift off. So let's hope everything goes good this holiday season, but we do have triggers here that could be really very volatile. So we got to watch where all that's going. And again, I say I'm not here to give people financial advice, but I think it's a wise time to diversify a bit. Precious metals, silver and gold, not a bad way to go. Again, I'm not selling them, but I think if we see the BRICS nations go to gold standard, we could see a catastrophic drop on the USD, which is the petrodollar. And I got news for you. From what I'm seeing the Biden administration doing, they're trying to curb petrol more and more and more, while the rest of the globe gets on it much greater, and we're curbing it. So it's a very precarious situation and time on the United States. It's almost like an out-and-out destructive attempt to get rid of this structure in the middle class of this country. So let's hope, again, we survive this. I do hope we become the phoenix rising out of the ashes as we move into 25. We do have some good aspects, but the way I'm seeing it right now, fasten your seatbelts, because this year is going to be intense. So let's hope, again, it doesn't work out that way. Now, we have a third quarter moon coming in on I think it's Wednesday the 4th. And that is, again, in the final phase of the moon, which leads up to the Mercury retrograde on the 12th on the new moon. So also, we had some huge solar flares this week. I know I've been really feeling it. I was really wiped out earlier today. They said there was a huge X-class solar flare that had happened, and they're washing over the earth. And of course, the weather patterns have been really erratic. And I think, when you talk to many of the scientists who differ from the end of the world climate change, global warming situation, they say it's the sun. And I believe that they're correct. The grand solar minimum, this has happened before in the 1700s and throughout history. They say it's happened where the sun has gone through erratic cycles like this. So I think, again, our new one world orders at the top of the pyramid are using this to do what they're doing. And it's very dangerous on the economic structures of this country right now. So we'll see where all this goes.
Oh, you bet. And we've both been seeing an extreme amount of chemtrails. I mean,
it's nonstop. And it's interesting because I get to talk to people all over the world, and I'm hearing the same thing from people all over the globe. And it seems to be ubiquitous. South America, over in Southeast Asia, Australia, Europe, all these people, they all tell me they're just painting the skies. I was on a boat with my son probably about 10 years ago. We were up by Catalina Island, and I noticed the sky was just totally pure and blue. And then all of a sudden, as we started heading in towards the harbor, all these jets are going back and forth up above us, just painting the sky. And of course, by the time we dock the boat, they're all spreading out into what everyone thinks is clouds. This stuff has been going on. I've seen it for probably close to 30 years. And it may have been going on longer than that, but it's certainly been 25 years plus. I would definitely say that. And very dangerous. There's all kinds of people saying, well, it's weather control, it's barium. There's a lot of people saying it's a lot more than that. So very dangerous stuff. We're like bugs. They're spraying us with a big can of Raid up there,
No, it's crazy. It's really crazy. And the other day we were even smelling it. I know I was. I mentioned it to you, right? You could
sometimes you really can
actually smell it. Yeah,
it's like almost a fogger type of smell. It just has a really strange odor to it.
That's right. That's right.
I ride a motorcycle, so I'm out in the air and I can really sense it. Where people in the car, they may or may not sense it as much, but it's pretty strong. It truly is, and I think it's being used for reflective purposes in one sense, for quite potentially weather control and other things too, because it's very, and that's only what we know. There's all kinds of stuff going on now with the 5G, and you look at what's coming through the electrical systems. I mean, anything can be put into that. You've got conductors all over your house. It's really a good idea too, to keep ourselves grounded. And a lot of people have gotten these grids where they will sleep on a mat that's grounded. And also you can, some people have gone to great extremes. They create a Faraday cage out of certain rooms and for meditation and such, and that you can ground it to ground stakes outside. Very interesting how sacred the earth is, because the earth is ground. It's like everything dumps into it, including karma, including evil, including good. It's really amazing. It's like a spiritual manifestation ball.
It sure is. It sure is. Well, share with the folks a little bit of what you've been reading about Enoch, because it ties into what you just said.
Yeah, it really does. There's several books of Enoch, and actually it's several, and it's very mysterious, the translations on that. There's the what they call the Ethiopic Book of Enoch. There's the Slavonic Secrets of Enoch. There's also the Hebrew Book of Enoch, and a couple of other versions. And this is very mysterious stuff, because this gets kind of into the biblical stuff on the Garden of Eden. And the story is a little bit different than the one directly told in the Bible. And I'm not disputing or here to dispute anything, but I can tell you it's very interesting how the angularity of the earth and the demon Nama, or Lilith is another one, that was said to have departed before Eve was created. Well, this very much parallels the ancient Vedantic lore, where this demon snuck in and drank the, you could say, angelic forces, or potions is what they say in the Vedantic lore. And the sun told God, or the angels of the sun told God, and God threw a discus at it and cut it in half. Well, the head became Rahu, the moon's north node and eclipse point, and the moon's south node. And what's interesting about this is they fit in with cyclic personal astrology. Amazing. And again, this is what we just had happen globally. We all felt this kind of shift. I don't know if everyone's been in touch with it, but this whole week, it's been kind of an unusual week. It's been kind of a weird, aloof energy and disengaging. And that's because the nodes were shifting out of the fire trines and the air and going into the water and earth. So it's very powerful when that happens. It only happens about once every 6 years, 6.5 years. It's not exact because there's 3 elements. Those are called the triplicities: earth, air, fire, and water. And it'll shift through those 3 times through the 4 elements. So it's very powerful. And every time it does, it brings a big energetic shift on the earth. And we're feeling this right now. So again, hopefully the violence will stay down. There's other ways to do it other than blowing each other up, right? So yeah, and that kind of ties us also back to the current topic tonight. And the Book of Enoch actually brings this in, or several different versions, where before the flood of Noah, they actually talk about how there were giants on the earth. And the giants actually came from these angels that came down and bred with the women of earth. And they had children. And these people were anywhere from 8 feet and plus higher. Well, if anyone's been around the Tartarian stuff and looked into some of the architecture that's here, there's Egyptian lore about how Thoth actually built, the pyramids and created the whole elements of earth. So there's many different versions of this stuff in different cultures. But one thing's for sure, there seemed to be a commixture of semi-demonic forces, or very demonic forces, with the human race at one point, and then it was destroyed. Well, this is full circle. When you really look at this, it's the same stories we see in the Vedantic and many other cultures all talked about this war in heaven, and we were cast down. And the interesting thing is it kind of also fits with the topic, are we programmed? And the answer, I don't think we're programmed when we come in here. I think the world programs us. And you look at society, and you look at different cultures, it's very interesting. That book that I had mentioned a few podcasts back, and we also mentioned that in our podcast on the soul, very fascinating. It's called The Book of Abramelin. And this was about the ancient legend that if human beings purified the soul and they stayed out of the white noise of egoic interaction, everybody's making money off of everybody else, right? Everybody's doing something to survive. So we're all forced in this mechanistic society, and even more now today, to be dependent on a financial system. Well, these people had advocated, the ancients, if you went away and you just stayed away from all the egoic interaction and purified with the vibration of the earth, you would literally become very sacred, and the angels could get to you. And there's an old term in the Greeks, some of the secret societies, they said, is called amphitherean. They said, we are so full of what we believe, they can't get to us. We're so rooted in our belief systems. Now, the book I always mention, The Magus of Strovolos, is elegant about speaking about thought form elementals. We emit them out of the third eye chakra, and they go out into our auric field. What's interesting is when we exit the body known as death, it is believed that the lower conscious mind's elementals stay with the soul. They almost like layer onto it, or they're you could say, baggage or the karmic gunny sack we drag along with us. And this gets into the whole reincarnational opinions by many different ancient cultures, particularly the one I mentioned was the Sha'ar Hagilgam, which talks about the lower conscious mind being the nefesh, which is a strange word that just means it's the present personality. It's what we literally have developed from birth forward. Well, this is what many of the mystery schools taught, was how do we break out of that? How do we realize that this lower consciousness, all the belief systems and the interaction with these miraculous bodies and the five senses are not us? We're much higher than that. And society never seeks to teach us about this. This is why the youth is very programmable. This is why they work on so many young people with these demonic forces at the top of the pyramid and their agendas. It's very easy to program children or people who are in their younger years. Teenagers get rebellious, but they're very programmable if you can get them to go your way. And of course, there's been a lot of studies into this. A lot of people have heard of MK Ultra, so on and so forth. But I think life itself is a program that we all have to be aware of. And the minute we become self-aware like that, now we start to step outside and deprogram, or at least use critical thinking and common sense to question our beliefs. And that's a big one. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's almost like we always have the opportunity to chip away at ourselves, right? To chip away at that programming. And we're certainly very intelligent beings if we use our minds properly. So we really can do that. We absolutely can do it. Like I said at the opening, it's something that I try to do every single day. And it's easy to do it, actually, because if you watch your reactions to certain situations and people, it truly is such a mirror. There's a mirror there of you can see your reflection in all of your actions. And that's how you can start to change things. And you can really see the programming. I mean, I see it in myself. I see it in everyone. But we do have the opportunity and we have the tools within ourselves to chip away and deprogram ourselves.
Absolutely. And I think that's something, there's a lot of methods and different ways to do that. Some people call it self-reflection, meditation, just using your common, you could say, inner reflection or common sense. But there's actually real methods that were employed by many of the secret societies. And I think the first thing is to just be aware that this is the fact that, most people are so concretized into what they believe, and they're so emotionally and egoically attached to it. Paramahansa Yogananda spoke about this. Krishnamurti spoke about this. Many people, Eckhart Tolle, so on and so forth. So many people have spoken about this. And of course, if you get into the more hardcore, self-helpers like Tony Robbins, and we look at, Napoleon Hill and so many others like that, that's all about focusing on getting what you want, right? It's putting the drive towards a direction and a goal, which is very important because when people, and I think this is the very core issue that AI will never, ever be able to have like we do. And that is the emotion. That's self-inner-generated desire. That comes from the soul. And many people have called it different things: the heart, the soul, the will, the drive, desire, etc. These are all inherent properties I don't think you can ever program into a computer. Now, you can certainly have a computer act logical and come to deductive reasoning. And that's the danger with AI. And that's really rearing its head right now in a big way. And I think it's going to become a major concern for humanity. Ridley Scott was just speaking about that, the very famous director who directed the movie Blade Runner, which was written by Philip K. Dick. Philip K. Dick is a really interesting guy. He wrote a lot of really cool movies. And Ridley Scott, he said when he did Blade Runner, he said, I never thought it would become that germane right away. But he says right now, I'm really afraid of it. He said, not just from the standpoint that it could duplicate actors, but that it could literally, if it's very interesting how James Cameron, when he had the themes behind and the core elements in the narrative of the Terminator series, particularly Terminator 1, 2, and 3, really accurate, because the military is already considering giving much decision-making over to extremely advanced computers. And this is nothing new. I mean, computers, they've had computers that are like 40, 50, 70 million dollars in submarines for the last 30 years. This is not a new thing. Can you imagine what they have now? I've even heard that they have gotten away from silicon, that they're actually using carbon-based, just like our brains, carbon-based neurological networks in these chips, because they're hitting the wall with the speeds on silicon. So God only knows what the government has truly developed. And from some of the people I've spoken to about underground lab stuff, I would venture to say it's pretty scary. And what I love about reading the book of Enoch, to bring this full circle, is, no matter how advanced the world got, and no matter how evil it got, divinity always came in and wiped it out and started over, because creation is where it all comes from. I always love to show that diagram with the four worlds. My personal opinion is that's accurate. And that is that divinity and creational forces are far above any of the molecular structures of this universe. And it does appear that the demonic forces are blended right in. They're actually interwoven in the constructs of atomic matter. Balanced forces, positive, negative, protons and neutrons, all that. So the inherent building blocks in physics may very well come to the conclusion that demonic forces are interbred. I think they're intertrapped within this. And it may go right back to the allurement of the spirits of humans wanting to incarnate in an egoic journey of separateness in these physical worlds, which is us. And I think we're coming to a point in humanity where the more we look at this, the more we just entertain the possibilities of this, we start looking at ourselves in a whole different way. Again, I go back to Dr. Carl Wickland, the Magus of Strovolos, and so many other psychiatric as well as psychological practitioners doing regression therapy, past life therapy, and clearing work. You and I have had direct experience with that one time with the chair that arrived. Remember that it actually had me by the throat, and I had to banish it, literally incarcerate it and take it away. And every human being is capable of learning these banishing techniques and incarcerational techniques. And see, this is what's been disempowering about certain religions, is that you stand and listen to someone tell us about God and everything else, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And I don't want to demean religions. There's some wonderful people, and I've had the opportunity over many years to work with many of them, and they're really, truly great people. But they're not teaching us anything about the God-given divine powers we all have. And this is, everyone is capable of exorcism, clearing spaces, blessing, and these techniques, a lot of people tell me, well, I saged the house and it still came back. Well, saging is great, but it doesn't do that much. That's like, taking a broom and sweeping out, a couple of bugs that are going to fly right back in. So you have to really get into more of the advanced techniques of sacred geometry and forces to push these things out with your own divine will. And also, it's like waxing the floor. You want to first wash it and then wax it and then protect it. So these are techniques that anyone can learn, and they're really, really powerful. When I do readings, I'm always giving people at times prayers. These are very ancient systems to decouple us from karmic attachments, which is really powerful. And, that's one of the reasons gemstones are good, because they cause your vibration to start vibrating more in tune with the good yogas in your chart when you select the right gems, and avoid the wrong ones. You've had some interesting experiences with your gems just recently, because you are going through a transit that's very powerful. So we found a couple of gems. You had to take them off. They were too powerful, and you had to go back to your blue sapphire.
I sure did.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, that was pretty wild. Well, I put on the emerald, and about an hour after I was wearing it. And it's interesting because I did have the emerald on during the last Mercury retrograde.
Yeah.
And it was good. Like I could feel that I really connected to that energy, and it's really supported me. But I put it on a week ago, or maybe it was a week and a half ago, and I started to feel so sick like an hour later. And I was lying in bed, and I was asking myself, like, why am I feeling like this? Oh my God, I put on
because you're really sensitive with this transit you got.
I put on the emerald. I took it off.
Yeah.
And I felt so much better. And then I had a similar thing happen when I put on the white sapphire.
Now, when you put on the blue sapphire, though, you felt amazing.
I felt amazing, like 20 minutes after. And
the reason why is you have a Saturn transit that's exceedingly powerful. I don't want to tell anybody what it is, but it's really powerful. And see, what does blue sapphire rule? Saturn. So this is cool stuff because I often tell people there's certain times you want to wear gemstones throughout life. You see?
Yes, you do.
And you just shifted doshas now. So that's why your sensitivity is going to be totally changed from 10 years ago when you were wearing different gems. See, this is why in Vedic Planetary Gemology, it's really good. I always tell people, only wear this gem during this dosha. Or there's certain gems you can always wear blue sapphire. Always wear blue sapphire. That's your core gem. And because of this Saturn transit, it's really working for you and it really helps you.
Yeah, it definitely is helping. Well, I find it so interesting what you were saying a few minutes ago about it's almost like makes me think of the power within, the power that we have within ourselves. And we don't need to look outside ourselves so much, do we? You know, my mom used to do a lot of, you know, what I would call strange stuff back in the day, but she was, you know, she would use her mind to move tables and move glasses and do all kinds of things. And I would just sit there and watch her do it. And it would take her time, but she literally was able to do that. And, you know, it's just really, really interesting. I don't think and that's just a small little thing, but I don't think we realize how much power, God-given power, we truly have within ourselves.
That's exactly right. And when you look at, you know, a lot of the Hollywood movies aggrandize the way clearings are done. And you can do it. There's all different types of methods with different religions. But I think the core element is belief. If you are rooted in your knowledge that you have this divine power and you invoke it and bring it in, it's really powerful. It takes a very focused mind. And fear is definitely an element you don't want to have. I find using astrology, I ran into this many years ago, where many practitioners in the ancient world, they would wait and they would have the moon separating from malefics or other planets separating from malefics and applying to benefics as they apply different techniques. This also applies to medical astrology when apothecary and medicines were given. And I have actually used that. It's really amazing. You can see when the flow of energy is leaving and going with you. There was a friend of mine who hired me years ago to clear an apartment complex, and there was some really nasty stuff. There were some suicides and drug dealers in there, and he cleared them out finally. And I remember I was clearing this place, and I literally had entities laughing at me, like, who do you think you are? This stuff, you know, doesn't work. And I was all these thoughts in my head. And, you know, we think, you know, it's just us or our mind playing tricks, but it wasn't. And what was fascinating is I just kept doing the techniques I was doing. It's very sacred techniques. It's based in literally divine names of God and angels and sacred geometry. And once I kept doing it with intention, like didn't care, just really, you know, just like drove straight through. And I saw a flash down at my right thigh and they were gone. And it was interesting because I came outside afterwards and the guy said the screen door was banging outside for like almost 40 minutes. And I never heard it. I didn't know anything was happening. He says, Jeff, I thought you were coming out constantly. He said, I'd look and there was nothing. Then the door was banging. There was no wind, no anything. And I didn't know that. But yeah, these things are very interesting. They're very dangerous too. It's not something people should play with unless they've had some type of training in it. Then there's many different methods. Malachi Martin wrote a good book. It's called Hostage to the Devil. That's one. But there's also many other techniques. Some I like and some I don't. But it's all what really you can center on and get force with. Again, the Magus of Strovolos has some really good examples in there of deposition. And also many regression therapists. I have a lot of clients that do that type of work where they will literally take someone and they'll find someone else talking. The books I have given examples of, Freeing the Captives. This is a medical doctor who got sick and tired of the allopathic surgeries and medications and said, there's something going on with these patients that is not medicatable. And she then became a regressionary therapist and started regressing these people, and other people would start talking. Well, who are you? I'm John. Well, where'd you come from? He said, I don't know. It's strange. We ran out of ammunition. I was floating down this river, and I don't know what happened, but now I'm in this place. Nobody can hear me. She goes, well, John, you might be in my patient's aura, and you're severely hurting her life and your future development. Now, people hear this stuff and they go, oh, geez, is that really true? Many people have heard of NDEs, near-death experiences. And people who have had accidents, went above their body, surgeries. There's all kinds of examples of this, which comes full circle back to nobody, in my opinion, dies. Yes, the physical body dies. No question. We all are born, we grow, we mature, we atrophy, and we die. That's the arc of life. Unavoidable. I don't care who you are. But the conscious mind survives this, and there's overwhelming data to prove it, in my opinion, in the psychiatric, psychology, and regressionary worlds. And this is not a bunch of people, with, crystal balls going woo-woo. These are really well-grounded practitioners. One of my favorite, again, is Dr. Carl Wickland, the psychiatrist who ran the Los Angeles County Mental Institution during the birth of Hollywood, which was, I think, right around 1918 to about the 40s. He wrote the book, 30 Years Among the Dead. And he might have died in the early 50s, if I recall. He's the guy who invented shock therapy treatment. Well, what does this all have to do with what we're talking about? Are we programmed? You bet we are. I think we're programmed with societal's beliefs, and we're also programmed with our own beliefs. And there's some of it's good. Some of it isn't. I mean, you see this, everything from, look what's going on throughout the world. We've gone through every phase of, societal programming. You look at the old movies, how different society was, and then you go back and today, look at the stuff that's going on with child trafficking, and look at the stuff that's going on in certain countries and cultures. You think you're on a different planet when you see some of the stuff that goes on. It's absolutely insanity. And, even today we're hearing a lot of these children are literally sold off into slavery, modern day slavery, where they're doing indentured servitude and work just to survive. And people say, well, this can't be, come on. We had the Civil War. Well, it's still going on. So that's what I mean. There's no reality. There's only perception. And I think that's where it starts to bring this conclusion, because this is a topic you can never really conclusively, land with. But I think when we all start with, there is a common morality, and there's also a common thread of common sense, that if we stick with that and realize the lower conscious mind is just that. It's the steering wheel, the gas pedal, and the brakes, or the keyboards, screen and the mouse, if you will, that we're interfacing with these miraculous bodies in this really divine, magical world.
Right. Well, you said it best yesterday when we were walking. You just said life is magical. And it really just hit me when you said that. Yes, it is. And we have to always know that it truly, truly is.
Well, it is. And none of us see that until we get sick, until something happens. The most valuable possession we all own, we're all rich. I'll never forget, I've been around a lot of really wealthy people out here. And what's fascinating is when they really get sick, I'm talking like on deathbed sick, and they know there's no way out. The doctors have told them, that's it, I'm out of here. they'd go, I'd give anything, all this wealth I have, all this power I have to buy back my health. Guess what? You can't. See, you can't. And see, life is magical. It's stunning. You find me a computer that can do this with their hands, or pick up a cup of coffee, or do the dexterity and land on a branch like a bird does. Life is magical, man. And AI and computers have a long way to go. And they'll never get there, because, again, we are spirit created out of matter. And we literally are. It's interesting. I was looking up Sir Francis Crick. For anyone who may have heard of him, he and Watson and another amazing lady had discovered the original genetic DNA string codes. And they were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. You can look it up on the internet. It was sometime in the 50s. I think it was 53, could have been 58, something like that. And everybody was like, wow, we're going to know everything. We're going to know everything about everything, right? We're going to figure out all of life. One person stood up and said, maybe in 1,000 years, we'll just figure out what we've truly discovered and did. And yes, you can look up your genetic tree and who's mom and who's dad and who's grandpa and where they all came from. But that's just the blueprint. That's like taking a blueprint for a house and throwing it on the ground and expect the house to be built. Just the blueprint. When you look at the sacred energy it takes to create life in a plant, an animal, or a human being, yeah, it might follow the genetic codes, but what's doing that? Well, the Keys of Enoch actually speaks about this. It's a fascinating book, how all these different angels come in and build different constituent parts of the physical body. I mean, this is deep stuff. You're not going to do this in a lab. We are spirit. The earth is where spirit manifests. And what is the astrology? Well, the astrology is the cycles of that journey of life. And I also think it's the cycles of souls, particularly when you get into the Vedic and the Nadi astrology, because the soul's journey is specifically related to the cycles and you could say, interactions of the portals, I think, is this solar system and these planets. I literally believe they're portals from the upper Yetziratic and upper heavens, which are way beyond planets. It's the soul base coming through, and it's exceedingly complex. It's way past sun sign astrology, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. And what a blessing it is to experience it all. What a blessing.
Pretty wild. And boy, it's powerful, I'll tell you that.
Sure. It sure is. Well, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for this. As always, thank you, everyone, for joining us. Have a great week ahead. It's the holiday season. Try to enjoy yourselves. And the programming thing. Let's try to deprogram ourselves as much as we can. Take care. See you next week.